Welcome back! We've arrived on a brand new island, which we've named Plateau Island for the various flat surfaces around it. And much like the other places we visited, this one seems to have its own distinctive feel. Rather than the industrial nature of Crater Island, the village habitat of Jungle Island, or the more ornate structures of Temple Island, this one seems to feel more like a private art gallery or museum. Everything around here seems to be very meticulously placed, like these work tusks here. Or very intentionally placed, as well, like these rocks here that seem to be frozen in time from some explosion. Maybe this is Gen's private getaway spot. At any rate, our concern is this control panel, or whatever this thing is. As we look down, we can see the various 5 plateaus that we passed by on the way up here via this canyon-esque crack thing. And from all indications, they seem to correspond to the various shapes of the buttons on the control panel. Wait a second, these are the same shapes that we've been seeing on the diagrams. The one in the stained glass painting in the gate room, the one in the Great Golden Dome, and the one in Gen's journal. Now, in the last video, we had deduced that those shapes must represent the various fire marble domes at least, because they were at the ends of the pipes that come out of the Great Golden Dome, which is their power source. However, they might be more than that. What I'm really curious about are a couple of things. First of all, this shape right here has a big hole in the middle of it. But even more than that, all of these aren't exactly strictly the shapes that are depicted here with right angles and whatnot. They seem to be a lot more organic. And in fact, if you were to look at these and piece them together, they might actually fit together, much like this big square right here. Wait a second. Could these be Riven's islands? It would certainly make a lot of sense. In fact, it would make a lot of sense that Riven might have been one big island at one point and it just broke apart due to the instability of the age. Let's take a look around here. Due north of us is Crater Island, and east of that is Temple Island. And directly due east of us is Jungle Island. Curiously enough, there appears to be another one of these tram things that runs from there to here. There's also a 5th island depicted on this map, but it's way out here and we can't exactly see it on the horizon. As of now, there's really no obvious way to get there. So what happens if we push one of the buttons? Well, it appears that something's happening. It looks like water is being pushed up through those holes there, and they're also serving as heat vents that manipulate it to form certain shapes. This one right here appears to be Temple Island, if we were to assume that this map was oriented in the same direction we're facing. It would make sense based on what we can see so far. This island here is probably Jungle Island because it's got the big hole in the middle, which presumably represents the village lake. It's also the biggest island so far and had the most stuff to explore. This island right here is most likely Temple Island as well because this bulge right here is probably the Great Golden Dome. Also, you might recall way back when that I had mentioned that Temple Island had a peninsula off the coast of the main part of the island on which the temple was sitting. This one right here is probably Crater Island because from all the vantage points from which we could view it and see it from far away, it looked like a big square. Well, let's put it back to normal. This looks nice and all, but I don't know exactly how this can help us. Let's keep looking around. We might have missed something. And indeed, it looks like there's another exit from this elevator here, from the backside. Well, this area is certainly different. It's ringed by cliffs and there's more work tusks here. And there's this squatty hut-like building here in the center. But there's really no way we can seem to get to it. Well, as usual, let's go right. There's also these totem things that are dotting the lake as well. They all appear to be in the shape of warks. You can see that they're facing upward with the tusks here. This one appears to have some sort of orange accents. Let's take a look at this one. Looks like it's got a yellow accent. And that one's got a green one. Very curious. Well, it appears we found this island's fire marble dome and its scope. Aww, somebody vandalized this one. We can't even see the symbol. That means if we try to stop it, we won't really be able to tell what the symbol is from this point of view. I guess we're just going to have to get up close to the dome and figure it out ourselves. Okay, it looks like a circle with a horizontal line. Yeah, we'll run with that. I guess there's really no point in opening it up, because it's probably going to just contain another book that we can't access. From here, though, check this out. Looks like another one of these knife tips. Maybe another rebel dagger? That's all pretty cool, but I really want to access that building in the center. Let's try playing with this thing again. I'll push the one for Temple Island since it's the first one we visited. Maybe this thing is somehow connected to the building, and we have to use it in conjunction with it. It's worth a shot at least. Okay, good. There's a bridge that leads across from here to there. So what magical mysteries await in here? Well, this is pretty cool. We can see a little miniaturized version of the squares that represent Temple Island. And one of them is lit up. We can also see a grid here of 5x5 squares. Well, I guess we can try pressing this lit up square here. Whoa! Okay, a bunch of pins just suddenly rose up, forming this shape here. This kind of reminds me of those devices in science museums where you can just stick your fingers inside some pins and it'll make a shape or sculpture. I guess this lever rotates it. Somehow it magically ends up back here after every rotation. Well, it's not too hard to figure out what this is. This is most likely the terrain of Temple Island. And this big bulge here is the Great Golden Dome. Let's just try pressing the other squares. But first, let me rotate it back into its original position. Let's try this one. Okay, on this one we can see more of the terrain. And on this one we can see the other half of the dome. I'm guessing that this is the starting area right here, and this is probably the path to the telescope. This is probably the path that goes around the edge of the cliffs here, and this is probably the area where that guard was thrown down, with this being the stone steps that lead uphill, and this being the gate room. And at last, the temple area. Well, that's pretty cool and all, but what exactly is this all used for? Well, let's think this through for a minute. We can access each of the island's terrains using this tool. I mean, presumably if we pressed one of the other buttons, we could do that for each of the other islands. Because notice Temple Island's position on this particular screen right here. It looks like it's positioned in the same spot that the button was in the square on the control panel outside. So, for instance, if we were to press the button for the tiny island that we haven't visited yet, that would probably be located right here. So, if this thing was used to examine the terrain of every island, then it must be used to map something, or take a look at something. So, let's think of it in these terms. What could possibly be mapped on every single island? What have we encountered on every single one of the 4 islands so far? The fire marble domes, of course. So, what could we use this information for, though? Well, think back to Gen's journal. He mentioned that the survey team that he had recruited was to scout out the locations for potential dome spots. But how could we use that to our advantage? Well, you might recall from just a little while ago that we saw a puzzle in the Great Golden Dome on the second floor that included a grid of 5x5 squares. And each of those 5x5 squares was inside a larger square, and each of the larger squares was in a larger 5x5 grid. Now we can see what all that represented. Each of the larger 5x5 squares is one of the squares here that represents each unit of the island, and each of those units has its own 5x5 grid. Now, I thought I saw something here. Yeah, we can see a little circular structure right there. That's most likely the Fire Marble Dome for Temple Island. So if we're to put those marbles in specific spots, these squares are most likely what will tell us that. So let's just keep on doing this for the other ones. We did Temple Island first, so let's go on to our next spot, Jungle Island. And I guess we're just going to have to wait for that water to go down before we can do anything. Oh well. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that crack in the middle of this map. If we are to believe that this is an entire map of Riven, you could postulate that that represents the instability in the age. It would make sense, at least. Well, let's take a look at Jungle Island and see what we can find out. I'm not going to examine every single square, I just want to see where the dome is. Oh, okay, looks like I got lucky this time. Okay, so it's on this spot, which is square number 9, if we were to go this way and then this way. Okay, well, let's move on to number 3. Sorry if this is kind of a bit boring, but it's pretty much just all brute work at this point. Now, wait a second. As we might recall, the dome for this one is located underground. So how are we going to be able to find it? Well, let's start examining each of the squares. We might notice something. Yeah. Remember earlier when we saw the dome, it had a big hole above it? That's probably it right there. Let's check out everything else. This is all the bottom half of the island. You can see the various interior area right here. So it would most likely be located up in the mountains, and this would make the most sense. So we'll go with that square. Square number 17 for the first big square. Alright, and let's do this island that we're on. This one shouldn't be too hard. If our geography is right, it should be located on the very last square in the lower right-hand corner. Alright, let's go to work. There it is, right there. We can even see it surrounded by the cliffs as well. So it's on square number 6, it would seem. Let's check out everything else for fun. I'd like to see those monoliths here on this thing. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, see, we can see the plateaus here. There we go. That is pretty awesome. Alright, enough gazing at the map. We got one more island to do, and then we're out of here. Because we still have got a door to access on the other side of that tram. Now for this island, we don't really know what it looks like or what its geographic features are. So I guess we're just going to have to go by that dome shape. Alright, one last spot to note. Okay, it looks to be on the second square. Also looks like there's some sort of giant plateau or something here. At any rate, it'll be interesting to investigate that island once we get to it. Well, our work mapping here is done, so it's time to go back downstairs. You know, just for fun, I'm going to raise the water here for Temple Island once more, because I want to see what this stuff looks like a bit closer up. I mean, I guess we could have left the water for the fifth island up, but that one's a little bit farther away from the crack, and I don't know if we'd be able to see it over the height of the wall once we get to that point, because it becomes a little bit hard to see over the edge there once you get down to that point. Whoops, I turned myself around. There we go. Yeah, we can see the water a little bit more clearly here. That's a pretty impressive mold. I guess there are enough vents on the plateaus to actually make that possible. The other mystery we still have yet to solve is this thing. Well, hopefully we can find some answers down here. But we're going to have to figure out how to get to that door in the next video.